last Sunday. It was the parable of the rejected cornerstone. Today, it is the parable of the rejected invitation. As I always tell you, parables are not life stories. Therefore, you have to look at the message, not the details of the telling. There are many messages and many details in this parable. But I will take only a few. But before then, let me draw your attention to a similar parable in Luke chapter 14. In that one, the parable is told in such a way that is significantly different from this one. Sometimes modern biblical scholars think they can reconstruct the Bible better than those who wrote it. Some say that it is the same parable that the two evangelists recorded differently. In Luke chapter 14, a certain man prepared a dinner, a great banquet, and invited some guests. In Matthew, not just any man at all, but a king prepared a wedding banquet of his son. There is a big difference. Oriri lila bagana. No nwere ediche n'oriri agbamakwụkwọ. N'oriri akwamozu. Ihe goshiri na ndị Igbo gadima nzuzu. Bụ na anyị ga na-akwa ozu ga na-agba akwụkwọ. Mmadụ nwụ anyị yọgide ga na-ayọ ma alụta onye enyi ma ọ bụ alụta ji era. Wedding banquets are the greatest banquets in all cultures. And so important that the Bible uses it as a symbol of the joy of the presence of the Lord. You have prepared a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. And recall Revelation chapter 19. We sing it every Sunday in the Vespers. The wedding feast of the Lamb is ready. So, this one, according to Matthew, is a wedding feast of the son of a king, which draws our attention immediately to the wedding feast of the Lamb. In Matthew, the invitation is sent out twice. In Luke, once. In Luke, they offer excuses. In Matthew, they ignored it. They made little of it. And worse still, the invited guests turn violent and kill the messengers of the king. Now, the second part about the king entering, I didn't look at all. I am not worried about whether it is the same parable recorded differently by two evangelists or whether they are two different parables, because I know that as a preacher and a teacher, I can tell the same story in many different versions depending on the message I want to give. So it is possible. Jesus told this parable in different ways at different times. It is possible. In Matthew, he was already in the week of his passion. The enmity had built up opposition. He had entered triumphantly into Jerusalem, driven out the people who were abusing the service of the temple, and opposition had started. He knew the end had come. So the setting was different. In Luke, the setting was when he was teaching the people that when you organize a feast, you prepare a feast, invite even those who should not, who can't repay you because they are poor. The contexts are completely different. Let us not talk about those who rejected the invitation. Let us not talk about the fact that they didn't even care in this gospel and got violent. Let us not talk about the fact that the things they went for, their business and their farm, that those things were good in themselves. Because I don't know, JJC Akunne, he was my roommate in the senior seminary. The Lucan version, he turned it into a song. Otu nnukwu ọgaranya kpọrọ igwe mmadụ nnukwu oriri si ezi ndị odibo ya iji agwa ha bịazianụ n'ogo oriri erugo mmadụ niile. Adịkwa na Latin, anyị na-ekwu na benediction. O mokwidam and so on and so forth. So so Bashim Jahondaga Zaga, none of Nsukka, Ngwagre Henke. May I kude Makaim Bando Zaria book. We have all happily answered, and the way we are dressed shows me that we all realize we are here for a feast. Christianity is not a life of sadness and sorrow and suffering, and it is a life of joy. In spite of all the challenges and problems and persecution, to be invited to be one with the Lord is an invitation to joy. If you are not a happy Christian, something is wrong somewhere fundamentally. The way we are shows we know we are in a feast. And we know it is the wedding feast of the Lamb. The first reading of the prophet Isaiah tells us, on this mountain, the Lord of hosts will prepare a banquet for nations. And he will defeat death and wipe away all tears and remove our mourning garment. Isaiah Madgihoneku, he was a prophet, speaking the mind of God, but he did not understand fully what he was saying, because he didn't even realize he was talking of that mountain of Calvary. It was on the mountain of Calvary that the Lord destroyed death, removed our mourning garments, and clothed us with immortality. And that mountain, Ajanke elobe, Najanke altar, otu ihe. Maka na ọ bụ Kristi n'onwe ya. N'elu obe ọ na-agba mme, ma n'ugbu a tadị ngọzi site n'ịbụ ụkọ ndị ụkọchukwu. Ọ naghị agbazi mme. Otito dịrị Jesu. Without Calvary, the prophecy of Isaiah would have been like the empty promises of Nigerian politicians. And without the Eucharist, that mountain of Calvary, would not be permanently present among us. Otito diri Jesu. Thank God you are a Catholic. We have come to that great feast. And everybody, good and bad, rich and poor, we are all here. Each of us in his joy. When you come for a party, it is not just for eating food. You tell stories, you meet friends, you forget your sorrows. It is the same thing at Mass. But one thing terrifies me about this parable. Yes, everybody was invited. And the king himself enters and looks around and says, one man in that crowd. Normal excuse will say, nwoke jekunu nwe asi abia do riri oga akwadogo. O bata ibi enyochegide kwoi. Ago chitelenie no nwerigi ihe o ji ago no ga agotonu ya. Some may say the man couldn't have been prepared because he was, Luke says, conscripted, forced people to come. But he was silent because he had no excuse. But what terrifies me is that the king entered and started looking attentively. And he noticed in the crowd one person whom everybody probably ignored. Everybody thought it was all right to be that way. My friend, that is even the most difficult. Even in my sin, God calls me son. Even in my unworthiness, Jesus calls me friend. My friend, how did you get in here? Can you imagine Jesus enters where the bishops are meeting and finds Bishop Onah there? And he asks him, this man, my friend, who made you a bishop? How did you get in here? It is possible people can smuggle themselves into the episcopacy. Some ask me, can a person become a priest when he is not called Juma Jesu? Ask Jesus. What of, can a person refuse to be a priest if he has been called? Ask Jesus. Some may have smuggled themselves into the priesthood. The rectors didn't see them. The parishioners didn't notice them. The bishop didn't notice them. Nobody noticed them. Gate man did not see this person. Security agents did not see this person. The servants did not notice him. But the king saw him. He thought he could hide. Father, how did you get into this group without a wedding garment? Bishop, how did you get among these people without a wedding garment? My friend, how did you come to this mass without a wedding garment? How did you come to this feast? With all with cult in on air, with all the betrayers of your marital vows. How did you get into this place? And he was silent. We think he doesn't see, or that he is so kind he will not mind. Imemma imenjo na Chineke na hoge igezonari Chineke igezonari Chineke kisi ezonari mmadu. Imemma imenjo na Chineke na hoge igezonari Chineke kisi ezonari mmadu. Ineche na Chineke na afụ ka mmadụ si afụ. Ineche na Chineke na anụ ka mmadụ si anụ. Ndị mmadụ na-eme njọ na-eche na Chineke adị afụva. Izonarị mmadụ ibe gị, ị ga-ezonarị Chineke. Night, none are called. Biagde bia nara oriri, I won't see you. Christian mother, no akoto ege megi ihe. Biagde bia nara oriri, bishop won't see you. Father won't see you. Father, sister, bishop, who doesn't believe in Iha Boriaragada, come and stay on the altar and everybody will be praising you. Nobody will see. But the king will enter and they will see. My friend, how did you get here? Without a wedding garment. Well, luckily for me, they were answers. I won't keep quiet. I won't keep quiet. I will find an answer. Once no notice go, I will dash for that wedding garment. I will run for it. Because some say that most probably in such big feasts by great kings, they provide the wedding garment at the entrance. The wedding garment is available. The sacrament of confession is available. The act of contrition before Mass is available. The invitation to change your life is always valid. You can dress up properly. Bishop, Father, Sister, Kata, Nna, Ukuru, Abogo, Wata. Are you properly dressed for this Mass? I'm not talking about indecent dressing, the ones we see. No. At baptism, we symbolically received the white garment that we were told to put on without staining. No sin should touch it until we meet the Lord in that banquet. We have stained it many times. But the Lord is merciful. He provides the possibilities, the opportunities of cleaning those garments up again. The tragedy is that we don't care. That is why we have no answer when he confronts us. But there will be that confrontation. Good, bad, we are all involved. But one day, the king will enter. Don't mind what people say and how they see you. It is his own eyes, it's his own judgment, it is his own assessment that makes the difference. That is the only thing that matters. Since we have that opportunity, may we as Christians, especially as Catholics, now make use of the opportunity we have to dress properly, to meet the Lord in the proper garments. The opportunity is there. And for this, we thank you. Confession for Nima in Ejebo. Confession. Ekam Bukna. Onwere Boshim Bekubere Undropana Lodi. Echete me yaba akoko go gagachara nye chetiri agbasa abia chetiri. Me father kon me an woman na ju pote ka ga mama ma okoko man me. Father Dominic Adwaka. Asu dan kuputa ina eje bu kuputa ko makambe. Oboro gade. Ne mbe ku bebere nduru pana lori me mbe ku dawo. Oruga nduru pana lo biara mbe ku ora wo ya na ya buru riri. Bendoro se anen Nsukka ade ko enwe ntenwe gechi. Mo marie na adimbe ko shigidi yo mo shikpo bemembe kusimbe ku bia. Bembe ku bia ne oriri. Ondoro velere ri oshire dedebe lelo. Mba asuru geku. Debe lelo mbom nelugo de yedi gatebe. Simbe ku na na emo ibo. Nega Kwaka Giri, Namini Bombe Pomeka. Umdorozo, Her Watchameka, Daily Berimbam Rigade. Mbekusan and Bemi the Nasa Wadaga. Jekwameka. Mbekwa de hekoteli o hekoteli biriye na ala gaja rute mama ya kanari bandro para lasia chemele kaka bo chere bas ko na ja gadanga je kokoma oneja akwo ayachi ndoro parrie parie no we ra no o to dire jesu awara na ma abi ko je confession na ibire kana la gaja gembe ko yatana je ko na teori. But listen, Paul says, I can do everything in him who strengthens me. The second point, don't trust on your own energies alone, your own tasks alone, your own powers alone. In him, even that sin you think is impossible to remove in your life can go. Don't give up, because you have messages. Pope Francis will always remind us, there is no sin so great that God can forgive. And God is never tired of our saying frequently, I am sorry, sincerely. So don't give up. Because by the time before you realize it, sorry. Before you know it, but other side, let it not be said upon any of yours that when the master comes and asks, my friend, how did you get in here without your wedding garment? And we remain silent.